Equity is that unique thing that is offered to you, which allows you to be a owner of your company. Not all companies issue you equity. If you're a part of a public listed company, that will issue you shares. But if you're a part of a startup or a private company that is venture backed, you will often find yourself as an employee receiving ESOPs. And this is the unique thing that allows you ownership in the company, where you feel that you're part of the company and sharing in the success of that company. Historically, all of us knew that prize round were the only rounds available, but please be mindful, founders, if you're doing a priced round, you are going to find yourself in a lot of diligence and negotiation at a very early stage. However, you also have options to do safe and convertible notes, something which is picking up a lot of traction in APAC now.
Consider at which stage you're going to establish ESOP and by how much. So, Solon mentioned earlier about the employee stock options pool. There are companies who are establishing their ESOP pool at a very early stage, like say right after the seed round or even before the seed round, right? Why it does matter to consider at which stage you're going to establish your ESOP. Number one, your employees' stock grants or stock options will be diluted as well. So if you will be establishing your ESOP very early on in your journey, then everybody will be diluted. And you have to, strike a really good balance whether to still keep your employees motivated despite the potential dilution later on. So that's why it's very common that every funding round, investors and founders are agreeing to top up the ESOP. Because number one, it works for the investors because it's an extra discount for them. So because the higher the ESOP, it's basically it's as if giving them a discount on the valuation.
So as an employee or someone who's an employee like myself, we always look at these things when evaluating whether this company is the right fit for us or not. What are the kind of shares you are issued? How many total number of shares? What is the strike price of the company today? Or if there's any historical information of previous strike prices to see, you can also check that. The date, which means the date the record grants are issued to you. What are the terms of vesting cliff exercise and the post-termination? Vesting schedule. We often, when the startup industry started maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago globally, we often saw that the cliff of 1 year was followed by a quarterly vesting. But now we also come across companies who sometimes don't even have a cliff and they allow you to vest your shares from day one. That is a tactic of companies going with aggressive hiring for the ability for them to attract and retain talent.
The stock option is a type of security, and all security must be registered with the Philippine SEC. However, because this is a stock option, the SEC opined that this is of a limited character, and the amounts are relatively small than in the usual public offerings, right? So hence, they provided the Section 10.2 of the regulation code exempts these ESOPs. So all startups and their lawyers need to do is to file this for SEC Form 10.2 to request for the exemption for registration of their stock options plan. Okay, not a lot of even other accountants are aware of this. How do you start a cap table journey? First and foremost, decide on when you are going to incorporate your company. So a lot of folks here are CFOs, fellow CFOs. So as we all know, there are pros and cons in setting up your ultimate holding company, if ever, whether it's here in the Philippines or abroad, right? So we have seen in the past 10 years of the startup ecosystem here in the Philippines that a lot of startups are setting up their headquarters or their holding companies but basically the most common ones are 3 countries, US, Singapore, and of course Hong Kong. For US companies, there's always this preference to incorporate in Delaware because of the what do you call this, less requirements, and also no tax literally for a lot of these companies, of course.
As a founder or as a CFO, you should care about cap tables because it helps you raise money on better terms, understands your dilution, and a clean cap table always helps companies accelerate their VC financing, because then your venture fund is not spending time cleaning up and understanding the nuances of your cap table, because he can clearly see and he can move to real business. Early stage founders, pro tip I will give you: if you find yourself to be a founder, try and retain as much majority control as you can in the beginning so that you are less prone to dilution. Very common cause. It's excess amount of capital being raised too soon in the startup journey. So when new capital comes in, your previous investors, your employees, your equity pool, everybody gets diluted. And if you are finding yourself creating new equity pools, a very common mistake I see founders do it, if they don't plan the equity pool in the beginning, they are often making new equity pools at every fundraise, which impacts the equity pool of the individuals made earlier. So founders, please don't make this mistake, because this mistake can cost you a lot of hiring. It can actually cost you in a hiring situation.
The reason why you need to model your fundraising and dilution scenarios is that, of course, again, we're talking about control, right? And the second thing is, you don't want any prospect investor to make it appear that, oh, you're giving up too much of your company, or you're giving too little of your company for a very, very, what do you call this? A bright future, I would say, a very good exit. You both of you won't be benefiting on the upside if that happens. So that's the reason why you really need to model it out.
Early stage activity. So I know a lot of us who have been following the startup ecosystem. I have been certainly keeping a tab on how startups are fundraising, which industries tend to raise more or not. But something very alarming is that at the moment we see valuations and startup fundraising has reached pre-pandemic levels, which is like the early part of 2020. This is the heat map of different industries. You can say the majority change of round has obviously happened in health tech, and SaaS and fintech being the other common suspects. I wanted to bring this data to you so that you are also aware of how the trends are changing globally in terms of fundraising, valuations, and how the small seed stage companies are performing as compared to late stage companies.